Hello everyone, welcome back to Into Sports. I'm host Evan, and today I'm joined by special guest Chris. We couldn't have him on for March Madness, so we're bringing him on for the NBA. And the NBA is going to be back in a few days, so we're going to tell you which teams are serious contenders to win it all, and which teams are just pretenders. So Chris, Philadelphia 76ers, are they contenders or pretenders?
Evan, when I look at Philadelphia, I consider the 76ers to be pretenders. Now, I think that they're a little bit too streaky. They're a streaky team that I doubt can pull together for a championship run. While they do have a lot of weapons in Embiid, Harris, Simmons, Horford, they're currently resting at the bottom of the East, which means that they're going to have a difficult path already to a championship. Now, I wouldn't completely count them out. I think that they're solid on the defensive end, and they're big, so if they utilize their size, they'll have a real shot. But as of now, they're a pretender for me.
Well, I agree. Pretender for me. Brett Brown, their coach, said Ben Simmons is going to play the 4, but that's not what I want. I want Ben Simmons with the ball in his hand, attacking, fast breaking, not just standing under the basket. Also, this is a team with some locker room friction, and after 2 or 3 months together in the bubble, I think they're going to be a little bit sick of each other. And I said, they don't know who they are. They kind of have an identity crisis. They also don't have enough shooters. They still haven't solved that. Now, the positive with Philadelphia is they were 29-2 at home. Only 10-24 on the road, though. And they won't be playing at Wells Fargo. And then we got a slightly immature team. Not enough shooting. Pretender for Philadelphia. Now, what about the Milwaukee Bucks? Best record in the league. Chris, are they contender or pretender?
I think it would be foolish to call these guys pretenders, Evan. I have them as a contender. Now, I think that the keys for them to be successful is that Giannis cannot do it alone. He's an MVP candidate. He's a fantastic player, but I need to see consistent numbers from guys like Chris Middleton, Eric Bledsoe, and Lopez so that the weight is not all on Giannis. This team is also very good at team basketball, and a lot of their dominant wins has everybody involved, which means, bench difference makers like DiVincenzo, Connaughton, Ilyasova, they all get going, and the points are pretty much even across the board. And then my last key for success for Milwaukee would be to play fast, because they got a lot of guys like Middleton, Bledsoe, Giannis, who can run the floor and just let the stars do what they do, work in transition.
Yeah, I'm also going contender here. The Milwaukee Bucks have the best point differential in the NBA by a mile, number 1 in defensive efficiency, but they're only 15-10 versus teams above 500. That doesn't really blow me away. They're 38-2 versus teams under 500, so they've really kind of feasted on the weak. Giannis has only won 2 playoff series. His lack of shooting can be exposed late in games. And also, kind of a shocking news, Chris Middleton apparently didn't touch a basketball for 3 months. That's kind of crazy. Is he a good enough number 2 option to win a championship? Because he's no Paul George, he's no Anthony Davis, he's no Russell Westbrook. So I'm not entirely sure the Bucks are going to get out of the East. I'll talk about my surprise team later. I put them as a favorite to get out of the East, but they're 53-12, so I have to go contender here.
Exactly. It helps a lot that they're first in the East, meaning they shouldn't have too much trouble in the opening round.
Yeah, now, the negative there is they don't get that home court advantage that they deserved all year.
Very true, very true.
Now, what about the Houston Rockets?
So I took a while to think about this, but I came to the conclusion that the Rockets are a pretender. Now, yes, they're a competitive team with elite scorers. You have one of the best scorers in the league in James Harden, backed by Russell Westbrook. But I just don't think, when you look at the West, Evan, I can't see that backcourt being able to send home the Clippers or the Lakers. They're talented. The Rockets can really shoot the 3 ball like no other. They love to shoot the 3, which plays into their advantage. But they play a little bit too much small ball, which I've been noticing. And that plays to their advantage on offense, but it can really be a liability on defense. I would be shocked if they could guard the Lakers, such a big team with Bron, Kuz, Davis, JaVale, all those guys. And a big factor in that is they're going to lose the rebound battle and pretty much against all of their opponents, which really limits their second chance opportunities. And going back to the 76ers, I think the Rockets are similar. I'm not counting them out. I'm not saying they have no chance, but we've seen in the past seasons that the Beard and Westbrook can tend to struggle to capitalize in the playoffs. So I got Houston as a pretender.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. With the lack of a big, how are you going to guard Anthony Davis? This is really the Rockets' last chance, I think. If they don't win it this year, I don't think they will ever win it with James Harden. And I've never thought they had good chemistry. But after a 5-month hiatus, I don't know if anybody has good chemistry. So that doesn't work against them as it normally would. Also, Harden typically runs out of gas in the postseason, but he just had a 5-month break, so I don't think that's going to happen. But unfortunately, I feel like I've seen this movie too many times before. As you mentioned, James Harden and Russell Westbrook in the playoffs, Harden not getting whistles, Westbrook shooting too many threes for a guy currently shooting at 25% from three-ball land. I'm in agreement with that. Rockets are pretenders, but they always kind of have that puncher's chance.
Yeah, exactly. If they can defy their history, their consistent failures in the playoffs, they have a shot. But like you said, I agree. If they don't get it now, I think we could probably expect a blow up within the next couple seasons.
Yep. What about the defending champs, the Raptors? Feels weird to say.
That does feel very weird to say, and it hurts me to say this because I love watching these guys play. But in my eyes, Evan, they are a pretender. So they're second in the East. They had a really good regular season pre-COVID. And that shocked a lot of people after the loss of Kawhi Leonard. A lot of fans were unsure of how the Raptors would do given the loss of such a crucial player. They're backed by Nick Nurse, who's a great coach, and they can rally behind stars like Lowry, Siakam, and Van Fleet. But here's why I think they'll struggle to reach the finals. Yes, they can hold their own in the regular season. They won a ton of games. But as we all know, the playoffs is a different animal. Toronto will definitely be tested this year without a true anchor star to get consistent buckets. They had Kawhi last year, a guy who they could lean on heavily when they needed scoring, they needed defending. He distributed, he could rebound, he could do it all. But I'm not sure Siakam in the crunch is the guy to be able to lean on. I'm not sure Lowry can give you consistent buckets down the stretch. So I think Toronto, while they'll have a good playoff run, I don't think they'll be able to finish, especially when you see a team like LA where there's LeBron and Davis, you see Boston who has Tatum. These are guys who you can count on, when it comes down to it. I just don't think the Raptors, I think they're missing that guy with the loss of Kawhi Leonard. And for that reason, Evan, they're a pretender.
Yeah, another agreement here, actually. I know they won the championship last year, but that was with Kawhi Leonard, and they really needed a Durant and Thompson injury in the finals to win it all. They're only 11-14 versus teams above 500. And Siakam, like Middleton, apparently went 3 months without playing basketball. But positive, they're the number one scoring defense. But I don't know if that continuity on the defensive end is still going to be there after a 5-month break. I do like their championship experience, but I don't think they have enough firepower offensively to be a real shortlist favorite to repeat. But now, what about LeBron James' team? We've had so much talk about the Battle of LA. Are the Lakers contenders?
I feel like I can keep this rather brief. I think the Lakers are the monster of the playoffs. You have LeBron, the best player in the world, who is having an MVP season. He's passing like no one else. He's leading the NBA in assists. He can still score pretty much close to at will. And he is a guy, like I said earlier, he's a guy who you want the ball in his hands in the clutch, and he can provide for that. Not to mention, the Lakers are completely loaded. You have Anthony Davis, Kyle Kuzma, Dwight, Quinn Cook, a lot of these guys, Deion Waiters, J.R. Smith. All these guys can get their own buckets, and that will definitely help LeBron manage his load. They're first in the West, and I think it'd be foolish if anybody called these guys a pretender. They have the best guy in the world. They have momentum. I think they might be the favorite to win it all, Evan.
Yeah, whenever you have LeBron James, you're an automatic front-running championship contender. But Chris, they lost Avery Bradley and Rajon Rondo. So I rode the Lakers hype train all year to win the championship, but I am jumping off now. I'm switching my pick to the crosstown rival, the Clippers. Now, I mentioned they lost Rondo and Bradley, and losing Bradley especially is really going to sting. He scored 22 in their sole victory against the Clippers, and they replaced Rondo and Bradley with Deion Waiters and J.R. Smith? Are they trying to win games or make memes? I mean, this is the ultimate meme team here, but I have to go contender, but they're not my complete favorite anymore.
I agree. I think that losing Rondo and Bradley was definitely a loss. I don't think that they're making up for it completely. Signing Smith and Deion Waiters, but I think, it's so hard to count LeBron out. I feel like it'll definitely be a show. The Lakers will definitely bring a show.
Yeah, I never count LeBron out. But Chris, can I count out your favorite team, the Boston Celtics?
So when I was looking at my notes for the Celtics, Evan, it was tough. But, you know that I bleed green. I ride for the Celtics. And my unbiased opinion is I believe that these guys are contenders. My first point that I like to make is that they're deep. Assuming Kemba Walker is healthy, they have athletic guards who can score. You have a guy like Marcus Smart who's a difference maker. You have Kemba Walker who's a difference maker. Jayson Tatum, Hayward, all guys who can give you buckets, and most of them are pretty consistent. Now, I think what's really going to be interesting this year, Evan, is seeing Kemba Walker with a team with a fighting chance in the playoffs. I feel like he'll be so hungry to advance. He never had any help in Charlotte. Every time they would be in the playoffs, they'd be playing a 1 or 2 seed. Now he has a fighting chance, and I think that his hunger and that intensity could fuel the rest of the guys, something that the Celtics as a team could thrive off of. We know Jayson Tatum is on his way to be one of the best scorers in the league. He's already close to being a top dog, 6'8" forwards averaging 24 points and 7 boards, really blossoming into an efficient player and a leader for this team. And then just to mention Brad Stevens, he's one of the best coaches. He's very quick on his feet. I feel like as long as they game plan for their opponents, their depth, adaptability, and coaching will give them a fighting chance. So I have the Celtics as a contender.
Wow. Well, they're number 2 in scoring defense, and also they're 1-1 against the Bucks this year with a positive point differential. They have 3 guys averaging 20+, Jayson Tatum, Kemba Walker, Jaylen Brown. And quietly, Gordon Hayward is kind of returning to form. He's averaging 17 a game. Now, of course, all the Boston fans think Semi Ojeleye is like the secret Giannis stopper. Spoiler, he's not. But they're well coached, smart, they're great defensively, they're focused, there's no more Kyrie drama. And it's a weird season, so there's more variance. So I'm actually going to go contender with the Boston Celtics. May have surprised there.
It's a great take, Evan. It's a great take.
Now, what about the LA Clippers?
Evan, as you mentioned earlier, I completely agree with you. If anyone can dethrone LeBron and take down the boys in purple and gold, it has to be the Clippers. You have the man who did it all last year, the Finals MVP, Kawhi Leonard, one of the best scorers in the league, and Paul George as well. And, it's so important to have guys who can change it up in the playoffs, like difference makers. And actually, I'm not sure if Lou Will is going to be, well, he will return, obviously, but he's quarantining right now after that, after
Left up.
bubble for his personal reasons, I guess. But, having difference makers like Pat Beverly, Montrezl, Lou Will, these guys can provide their own any given night just to help out Kawhi and Paul George. And one thing about this Clippers team, Evan, is they're scrappy. I saw a stat the other day with, when Beverly, George, and Leonard are all healthy and playing, the team is 21-5. That's very lethal, and we are all aware of how prevalent and important defense is in the playoffs. They have forwards who can score out will, guys who will go the extra mile on defense, and they're also very deep. A lot of people forget Clippers have Landry Shamet, Zubac, Marcus Morris, Reggie Jackson. All these guys are capable of starting elsewhere, and they're talented and ready to rise up in the playoffs. Not to forget Doc Rivers. He has playoff experience. He's an NBA champion coach. He knows what it takes to win, and he's got a toolbox full of weapons. So, honestly, Evan, I think these guys are my number 2 to win it all, but if anyone could beat LeBron, it's definitely the Clippers.
Yeah, this is actually my new championship pick. You mentioned that depth. They can go 10 deep. And actually, I think the Clippers can make a lineup out of backups better than the Hornets starting lineup. That's how good that bench is. And in a season with COVID questions, injury questions after a long break, having Clipper-like depth is going to be as important as ever. They also have this kind of Clipper quality, I call it, where I watch the games and I can't even tell which guy's Kawhi Leonard. Because they have 5 guys on the court that are 6'10", 7-foot wingspan, athletic, can shoot it. They can overwhelm teams with their size and length. They're 2-1 against the Lakers this year. Kawhi is taking over in the fourth quarter. Plus you got Doc Rivers, a coach I really like. I'm going contender, and they are my favorites to win it all. Now finally, let's talk about the Denver Nuggets.
So when I was looking at the Nuggets, I was originally going to say pretender. But, I reevaluated, and I think these guys are a little bit slept on. When I look at the roster, I see nothing but potential. You have Jokic, one of the best scoring bigs, who can distribute as well. You got a backcourt in Jamal Murray and Harris, assuming they both play. They can score like crazy. They're very confident in the clutch. And you have defending wings like Will Barton and forwards like Millsap, Plumlee. All these guys who can rebound and finish at the rim. I just see a bench with so much possibility. I know a lot of people are riding the Bowl train right now, but, Troy Daniels had 25 in the first game, I believe, 24, 25 as well, not to go unnoticed. A lot of these guys are stepping up, having fantastic scrimmages, trying to prove something. So all this, Evan, I look at it and it makes me think the Nuggets are actually deeper than most people recognize. Additionally, kind of like similar to Milwaukee and Toronto, they play a lot of team basketball. It's not one guy like Harden or, just dominating the ball play. We see, a lot of ball distribution, and they just feed into the high hands. It could be Jokic, it could be Millsap, it could be, Barton. Every night a different player can lead the charge for these guys. Another thing about Denver, they're big, and size can really overwhelm opponents in the playoffs. A 7-game series, it can be brutal. And finally, you have Mike Malone, Coach of the Year candidate. He's done a great job with his guys the past few seasons. Evan, I have the Nuggets as a contender. Keep an eye out for them.
Wow, that is surprising. But unfortunately, I'm going to have to disagree. Now, you got Nikola Jokic as the leader of the team. Normally, I'd be skeptical of a center as the number one in the playoffs, but I'm going to help your argument here. 25, 13, and 8 for Jokic last year in the playoffs. But my question is, who's the number 2? Jamal Murray? No disrespect, but he's not a number 2 guy on a championship team in my eyes. And here's the other thing. They're just 18 and 14 away from altitude, away from Mile High. So they lose a critical home court advantage when they head down to Orlando. I see your argument, but I'm going pretender.
Got you, Evan. I understand what you're saying. So now, just to recap, you want to mention your favorite to win and who you would like to win.
Yeah, so my favorite, as I mentioned, is the Clippers. And honestly, I'm rooting for the Lakers. Maybe the Celtics for you. Maybe I throw my hat in that green ring. But what about you?
So my favorite to win, I could honestly see, like you said, either LA team. Without the Warriors menacing LeBron, I think he's really gonna go off. So I'm just gonna say Lakers will be able to edge out the Clippers, probably in 7, which I think is gonna happen, and then the Lakers would win out whoever comes out the East. But as I said earlier, I'm a Celtics fan. I bleed green, so obviously I want Boston to do well, and I think they will have a good run. So I look forward to the playoffs. I look forward to watching it.
Yeah, it's going to be a very fun postseason.